Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining today. So I'm just gonna warn you guys, this is gonna be a longer live video because I have a lot of new followers that have come in just in the last couple of months, and a lot of you guys have not heard like my whole story. So I thought I would come in here and share that with you so you kind of like understand who this Heather chick is, and you know, where she came from and all the stuff she's been through, and you know, what has she been through to get her to this place, and all of that kind of stuff. And so that is my goal for today. So if you guys want to share this, if you want other people to hear my story, feel free to share it. I'm feeling a little more self-conscious today because a lot of the stuff I'm going to share is hard to talk about. Some of it's not fun, like at all. I don't like to talk about it. Some of the things I like to just feel like I can wash it under the bridge and like never think about it again. But those are the things that have made me into the person I am today. So I thought I would definitely share that with you guys. So let's see who is on. My son Cody. Hey baby boy, what is going on? Angela Ellis Waters. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Hey Larry. Okay, so here is where I'm going to start with you guys. I'm actually going to take it all the way back to, I guess around junior high and high school, because that's kind of where like my story starts. Okay, so I grew up in a home with parents that had different religions. Okay, my mom was born again Christian, my dad was Jewish, and so my dad didn't really go to temple. He was more like on the Reform side. But my mom was like really, really into church. So she would take my sister and I to church like Wednesday night, Sunday night. We went to all the church camps. So I was like exposed to Christianity at a really, really young age. And that really helped to like mold and shape me into the person that I am, as far as like, even throughout all of the like hard stuff and bad stuff throughout my life, I always knew and had that hope that God was there, because I just grew up around it. And I just, you know, always heard from like the pastors and like my mom's friends when she'd visit with my mom, or when they would visit with my mom, I'd hear them talk about like how, you know, no, it's okay. You'll get through it. God's with you. He's there holding your hand and all that stuff. And so I grew up like hearing those, you know, thoughts. And so as I went through my life, like everything up until this point, I've just always had that really strong belief system that God was there and that he was taking care of me and that everything was going to be okay. And I just knew it. I just had that really deep seated like belief system. And it just came from, I really, really, truly believe, growing up in the church. Okay. Now around, I want to say the beginning of high school, around that time, or maybe even junior high. I don't know. I can't remember. But when I was younger, junior high or high school age, you know, obviously bodies, they start to change, right? And I went from being pretty small to all of a sudden having breasts at, I think it was like 5th or 6th grade or something. And like people around me in 6th grade, their bodies were changing, and we were like all embarrassed and wanting to hide ourselves, you know. And but it was around that time when like puberty started, when you know, my weight started to come on. And so around our house, I started to hear things like, you better not eat that, it's going to make you fat. And that was probably, I want to say it was like, I don't know, I'm so guessing right now, but like age 13 or 14, like around that time. And so I started hearing things like, you better not eat that, it's going to make you fat. You better not drink soda, it's going to make you fat. Like, so I had all of these, you know, things going into my head about like, you better not eat that, it's going to make you fat. But at the same time, like I would crave things, right? Like just like any teenage girl, you know, you crave sweets, and you know, like to have that way to like relieve stress. And for me, food was always like one of those things. So like Snickers bar was my absolute favorite when I was growing up. Snickers and Musketeers, like, can I get an amen? Like those are so good. Those are so good. So that is basically when I was stressed out or hormonal. that's what I would always grab. And because like I felt bad about it, I started to hide the food that I was eating. And it was just, someone in my family making me not feel comfortable. So what I did was I started to hide wrappers, all right? And that is pretty much where my binge eating, like awareness of food and how it affects the body started, was like late junior high, early high school. And so, like I said, I would hide the wrappers. I literally would hide them under my mattress, and then when my parents would leave, like I would get them and go throw them in the trash can. And so that developed like the beginning of what I believe is an eating disorder, but like we never went to counseling or nothing like that. Like just my parents didn't do that. So, I probably did eating disorder and didn't know it. But I can tell you that it definitely started making me feel like I didn't like myself that much. So going into high school, hi Jen. Going into high school, I became very self-conscious and very like introverted, and didn't really like attention on myself. And so a lot of times in school, I would be walking with my head hung down, like how you do, like walk, like not look at anybody, like don't make eye contact. And so, I kind of went through high school like that. Like no one really knew me except for people that were maybe on the dance team. So I did really like to dance, and that's one of the areas where I felt like I just came alive, and I didn't care about all the negative things that were going on while I was in dance class. And so, and of course on the dance team, it's so super fun because you're competing and you're like getting to know other people from other schools that dance. And so that was super, super fun, super, super fun time for me. And so I loved it. But then my parents got divorced, and I think I was 17. I just turned 17. I think I was a junior. So I was on the dance team that year, and we had a big competition that was coming up. And my parents were in the process of getting divorced. I was an angry, angry, angry girl, feeling very hurt, feeling like I was going to be, like left behind, or like, I want to say rejected, but I don't know if that's the right word. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, but basically like I was being abandoned. Like I felt like I was going to be abandoned. And so my junior year, I started to become hard inside my heart, and started to become rebellious, and started to do things that were not acceptable by my parents and by the church that I was going to, and the Bible and all that. And so but I just went for it. I just went all in with my rebellion. And what that did, unfortunately, was it got me kicked off of the dance team, because this one competition that we went to, we met these guys and they offered us some beer, and there happened to be a girl that didn't like me that was sitting right next to me. She didn't take the beer, and I didn't think anything of it at the time, but she ended up going back and telling on me, and she got me kicked off the dance team. And so that really, really spun me into like a depression for several months, because the dance team was actually my identity at that time. And so when it got pulled out from under me, I was like, well, now what, and so I really didn't have anything to like keep me inspired during that time. So I just basically went to school, and I wanted to hurry and like get out of there so I could graduate and like start my life, So then, I graduate, several years go by, and I meet my now ex-husband, and we had 2 kids together. During that marriage, very, very abusive marriage, I was told to like basically not be myself, and was made fun of for the things that I enjoyed, and my faith was made fun of. Like everything was made fun of to the point where, like, I feel like he, and unfortunately, I didn't have that belief in myself back then. And so I allowed him, like the words that he said, to become my truth. And so I literally believed when he told me that I wasn't worthy and that, my God didn't care about me and like all of these things. Like I literally, started to believe him. And so like his words like beat me down pretty much. And so we were married for about 4 years. I had 2 kids in that marriage. Through that marriage, again, I just lost myself. Like I completely lost who I was. I didn't even know. I honestly feel like I didn't even really care. I was wanting a way out, but didn't want to leave because, I grew up being taught you just don't leave, you stay. And that's the way that God would want things. You stay, And so anyway, he ended up finding someone else and left. And so then I was alone with, these 2 kids. And about, I want to say 6 months after that, I met my now husband, Chuck. Okay, so now we've been together for 17 years, I believe. Yeah, 17. But in the beginning, you guys, it was so hard because I was coming out of this place, of abuse. And here comes Chuck, and he kind of like was like a savior almost to me. And I was barely holding on at that time emotionally. And so I really like latched onto him, and I used him, I didn't mean to be mean about it, but I used him as kind of like a crutch, I guess, almost to get through the emotional baggage and the emotional horribleness that I had just, come out of. And he allowed it. He didn't say anything. He, would allow me to cry on his shoulder about stuff, and he would tell me it's going to be okay. And he, started to affirm, who I was, and he, would talk truth into me in a loving way. And he started to bring me out of myself again. Thank God, because if it wasn't for Chuck back then, I don't even know where I would be today. I honestly don't, because I had completely lost myself. Like, I didn't even know who I was at all, at all. So, I praise God every single time I make out my gratitude list. I'm like, praise God for Chuck, praise God for Chuck. Like, it's been 17 years, but this whole time he has been supporting me in every single thing that I ever want to do. Like, even if he doesn't agree with it, he might tell me, I don't know. I don't believe in it like you do, but it means the world to me that you're happy. And so he's always like, go do you, go do you, go do you, go do you. So I really, really have appreciated that for him from day one. So we get married, and I see how good. I mean, he's so good with my boys. And so I started to feel like, man, I really want to give Chuck his own kid. He's so good with my kids. I would love to give him his own, And so we started trying to have kids, and I got pregnant pretty quick, actually. And then I had my first miscarriage, and I'd never had one, before. When I was married before, that never even came up. And so I had my first miscarriage, and I remember going into the doctor. I think I was 4 months pregnant or something like that, 4 or 4.5 months, around there. And I was supposed to find out the sex of the baby that day. And so I actually went in by myself because Chuck was working that day, and went in, laid on the table like I was supposed to. And the lady put the goopy stuff on, and she's doing this over my belly and everything. And all of a sudden she said, and I wasn't even looking at her at that time. I was looking up at the ceiling, and she goes, And so I looked at her, and I still remember she's on this side of me. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, hold on a second, I'll be right back. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? So I was laying there. I started panicking and not understanding what was happening. And then she comes in with this like different tool to, you know, test or whatever. And so she put this different tool on me, and she's like, well, I'm not seeing a heartbeat, and I'm not, you know, seeing or feeling or whatever heartbeat. And I don't know what that means right now. It might be my equipment, but I'm going to send you in for some more tests. And so, of course, I started crying, and I was by myself because Chuck was at work, and I was like, oh my God. And so, anyway, I went and got some like blood work done, this other test, and it turned out that, sure enough, you know, I had miscarried, but the baby was like still in me. So, I had to set up a DNC, I think they call it, and it was like several days later. And so I went home from that appointment, and I just remember, I knew I shouldn't have put makeup on. So I just remember like laying on our bed, and I remember crying to Chuck, and I remember saying, I just want this out. I feel like there's this dead thing in me, and I need it out. I need it out. Like, I was so freaked out and panicked about it. And so, you know, of course, he tried to comfort me the best that he could. And, you know, I was just like crying my eyeballs out. And so I go in and I have the DNC, and, like on the way home, we stopped by McDonald's, and this is like such a God thing, but we stopped by McDonald's, and, I decided to get a, little kids meal, and, you know, Chuck's like, yeah, it's for a girl. And so I get it though, and I open it up, and inside the little, toy thing was like a little baby girl, and it was like that small. I can't remember the name of them, but like I've kept it all these years because, you know, I didn't know what I miscarried. I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. And so I kind of thought, well, maybe it was a girl, maybe this was a sign, you know. And so I just kept it all these years. It was just kind of like a reminder that, you know, of what I went through. And then, of course, God kind of speaking to me that, you know, he can take us through anything. So I got through that experience, and we tried to have another baby. You know, we tried to get pregnant again. And so I think it was like, I want to say it was like 4 months later. I didn't have to wait that long. So I got pregnant again, and then I miscarried for the second time. The second miscarriage, you guys, was probably the hardest emotionally that I had to go through, because I grew up in a church, okay, like I said. But somewhere along the line, I was taught or heard or something, I'm not sure where it came from, but somewhere along the line I developed a belief system that God would not allow the same exact thing to happen in your life twice. And so I just thought, okay, well, I'd had that one miscarriage, and I honestly didn't plan on ever having another one. I thought, okay, got that out of the way or whatever. And so the second time, the same exact freaking thing happened. I went into the doctor. I was supposed to find out the sex of the baby, and same exact thing, you guys. Like, I literally, you know, heard from the doctor again, sorry, we can't find the heartbeat. But the second time, you guys, I literally freaking lost my mind. Oh my God, you guys, I literally was like, I had all the stuff hooked on me, and I literally tore it off, threw all the crap on the ground, put my clothes back on. I was crying like a maniac, and I ran out of the doctor's office, and I drove right over to Chuck's work. And I just remember, I seriously thought I was dying. Like, I was so upset. And it really, that miscarriage, you guys, it really shook my faith, because again, I thought that the same thing would never happen. And so when I had that second miscarriage, I thought, God, how can I trust in you? How could you allow the same thing to happen to me twice? Like, I didn't think that this ever could happen, you know? And so it really, really shook me up bad, you guys, like to the point where I literally stopped going to church. I stopped having all communications with any church people that I'd ever met. And they were reaching out to me too. Like the church was wanting to bring us over meals, like to help out, because I was so upset and just was not like able to do anything pretty much. And so I allowed them to come over for a couple times, and then they were so touchy-feely, and I couldn't deal with it. I'm like, you have to just go away. And so I called off the church meals, and I just went into the deepest, darkest pit of despair that I have ever been in my life. And I pulled away from everybody. I pulled away from God. I pulled away from my church friends. I pulled away from like regular friends. I pulled away from my family, and I basically just laid in bed and ate. And that is all I did. I literally would eat sugar all day long. I packed on the pounds like no one's business in just a few months. I mean, it was crazy how fast it happened, but like I just kind of felt done. Like I felt done. Not done with life, but like I felt done with like God at that time, and like I don't know. I just kind of felt done. So I lived in that dark pit, you guys, for several months. Then something started to happen. I started to like notice things when I would go outside, just little things, little things like the birds walking on the ground, finding food. I would notice like my other two boys, that I still had them, and that I started, learning to be thankful. I basically started learning to be thankful for what I already had, and looking around at creation, I don't know, it just sort of opened up my heart to heal, if that makes sense. And so over about like a month period or so, I started to be more open to receiving calls from my friends, and them wanting to talk to me, and encourage me to come back to church. And it's so funny that Olivia Archer's on here, because the church that we were going to at that time was where I met her. And all of a sudden, I just remember, like, after starting to heal, I started feeling like I just needed to go back to church. I just had this feeling, like, I need to go back to church. And so there was this Wednesday night, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Wednesday night. And, like, I told the family, I said, okay, I think I'm ready to go back to church. So, like, we all got ready. And as soon as we were about to go out the door, I said, I can't do it. Can't do it. You guys go. I can't do it. So Chuck and the boys, they left. All right. And so I think that was actually the first time that Chuck had to put the kids in the church youth group thing by himself. But anyway, about 10 minutes, if that, after they left, I had this deepest feeling inside myself that I needed to go to church. Like, I can't even explain it. It was just like I had to go. It was like this burning, this huge burning that was happening inside my heart. And so I got my crap together, and I drove myself to church, and I walked in, and there was a guest speaker. And I sat down next to Chuck, and he's like, oh, yay, I'm glad you're here. So I sat down next to him, and you guys, the preacher guy, the guest speaker guy, what all his message was about that day, it was so meant for me, it's not even funny. Like, he was talking about how to give God thanks in all things. And like, he talked about that so much. And I just remember sitting there, and I started to cry. I was crying and bawling like a freaking baby. And afterwards, I was crying so hard I could barely see. I said, Chuck, I need to go up and ask for prayer. Can you like walk up there with me? And so Chuck walked up there with me, And the guy that was like gonna pray over me, I told him why, you know, I was up there, and he's like, hold on a second, I'm gonna grab a couple other ladies that have also been through miscarriages, so they can like help talk to you. So he grabbed a couple other ladies, and you guys, that was the changing point for me in my relationship with God. I literally had my faith restored that day, and ever since then, whenever times have been hard, I always know that things are going to be okay. I always have, you know, this deep-seated belief that all things will work out for good because I love Jesus. I just have had that ever since that time, and I've never doubted. And so after that, healing started to happen. I started to go to church again, and very, very scared, but I decided to sign up for the nursery because I thought, okay, I need to be around babies again. Like, I need to feel like I can be around babies even if I never have another baby. And so I went into the nursery, and you guys, just holding those babies every single week just melted my heart even more and more and more. Just to be able to love on a baby was really awesome. And then about a year later, so then we tried to have a baby again. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to go through this again. But we did. So we tried for like a year, and it took a long time that time. But finally got pregnant, and I was like sicker than a freaking dog that entire pregnancy. I could not keep anything down. No liquid, no food, nothing. And so I ended up in the hospital for being dehydrated. And they sent me home with a PICC line. Like, I still have the scar. It's like right here. So it's still kind of bruised, which is really weird. I don't know if you could see that. Can you see the bluish? It's really weird how it's kind of stayed bruised. But so they sent me home with a PICC line, and literally had Chuck become my nurse. He changed my IV bags, and the medicine that they had to give to me when I went home was the same medication that they give to cancer patients when they're going through chemo. It was like that strong because I just couldn't keep anything down. And so from that medication, there were side effects like constipation, so I had to deal with that. So like basically like that whole pregnancy was super, super hard, but Josh is here. You know, Josh is my freaking miracle baby, you guys, and he's going to be 13 in January. And sometimes I look at him and I'm like, you have no idea what it took to get you here. It's like crazy, but I literally feel like he's my miracle baby. I really, really do. So, you know, I just wanted to share my story because I don't want you guys to think like I've never gone through anything. Because sorry, I was trying to reconnect again. So while you guys see me as being this completely vibrant, because this is how I see myself now. I see myself as being so vibrant and so full of life and so full of confidence and joy, and you know, there's just this belief system in myself, and I really feel like nothing could knock me down. But it took so much to get to this place. And so I just really wanted you guys to know that when I'm on here sharing pictures and sharing about my life and sharing you know, inspirational stuff and encouragement and things like that, it really does come from a place of I understand where you've been because I've been there too. And so when I make posts and they're encouraging and I'm giving advice and things like that, it's all based around stuff that I've actually gone through and I've lived through, and I've gone through the hell and I've come out of it a very strong, independent, empowered person. And so I really hope that me sharing my story is going to give you guys some hope, because I know some of your stories and I know they're tough, and I know you're going through the deepest, darkest pits right now. But I really want you to understand that you will get through it. Just don't give up. You know, find a way to heal and to talk to somebody and to be open to having someone else come into your life and help you through it. Because a lot of times it's when we pull away and we try and do it on our own that we feel the most depressed and the most anxiety, panic attacks, and the most amount of feeling in that deep, dark pit. So it's when we, let go of our pride and allow people to know our story, and we start to share it and we start to heal with other people. That is really, really when God can do a real big work. I'm telling you guys. So my life has not been perfect. Chuck and I have had several ups and downs in our marriage. Even when when Josh was born, this is going to sound so silly, but when Joshua was born, for, I don't even know, like the first 6 months, I literally was jealous of Joshua because Chuck's attention went from me to Joshua. As much as like we tried to have a baby and we wanted him here and I wanted him here, I still kind of went through this resentment phase of my own kid, which is really, really weird. And, I've talked to Josh about it, so this is no surprise, but it was just one of those things where I just wasn't strong yet. And I was still holding on to the pain from losing those other 2 babies. And I was still kind of feeling like I needed some extra love and encouragement from Chuck. And then all of a sudden it was kind of like, it felt gone. It wasn't gone, but I took it more personal than I should have, unfortunately. But I think, I know Chuck was just so happy to finally have, a baby that he just wanted to like shower him with love. And he's still like that. Chuck is such a good dad. But, again, our life is not perfect. It is like beyond not perfect. Like we still get in fights, I still lose my temper as a mom. I still, I'll still cuss, sometimes. I'll miss church for weeks on end. Sometimes, sometimes I just don't feel like going. And then sometimes I really feel like going, you know what I mean? But it doesn't make me less of a person. Doesn't make me less lovable. God still loves us the same, even when we skip church. But I do understand that when I do go, I feel so much more closer because then you're a part of the body more, and then you're kind of allowing people into your life and they get to share in your, successes and losses, and they really are your family. So I hope that this is cool that I shared my story with you guys. I hope that you related to some or all or any of it. But just know that I had to share. I just felt this compelling, burning sensation inside my heart, and I just knew I had to share my story today. And so even on the recording, if this is helping you, just comment below or reach out to me. I'm always here for you guys, always. If you ever need to talk about anything, I am more of a friend, type person than anything else. So I love to listen and pray for people and encourage. And so if you need any of that, just let me know. And if I need any of that, I'll let you guys know. And then I know I've got some really good friends on here that I've never even met in person. It's crazy, but it feels like you're right next door to me. That's how close I feel to a lot of you guys. So I know that you have my back, and I hope that you know that I have your back. I just really hope that you guys are having the best Monday. And I hope you have an amazing, amazing rest of the week. And until next time, you guys, love you. Bye.